This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going down into the submarine. It's going to be me and my team versus you and your team. We're going to be moving around. We're going to be using sonar and radar trying to find each other and damage each other with torpedoes. Today we're looking at Sonar, which is essentially a 2 to 4 player, more mass market version of its bigger brother that came out last year called Captain Sonar. This one I believe is going to be sold in Target. And so it's 2 to 4 players, and it is sort of a hidden movement game, team versus team or 1 versus 1. Let me show you. In Sonar, there's a big shield that will sit between your team and the other team that has some great artwork. It's actually the same board that's used in the original Captain Sonar. Everyone will select one map to play for the game. This is Archipelago. There's 4 different maps. Each team is going to have a captain and a radio operator. If you're playing with up to 4 players, each player on the team is going to do a different operations. Or if you're playing just a 2-player game or there's only one of you on your side, then you'll actually run both of these. Now the object is to inflict 2 damage on the other team. Most of the time you'll be moving. So let's talk about that. From the beginning you can just say where you're at, where you start, and then when it's your team's turn, it goes turn by turn. So you're going to move, the captain will say which direction they're going. North, south, east, or west, or the directions actually say up, down, left, right to keep it even simpler. Let's say this player says up, so they'll go up. Now, as they're doing that, the other team's radio operator, notice it's a different color board. It's still Archipelago, but it's the yellow side. That player is also following the captain's order. So let's say in the first turn that captain went up, and then they went up again, then they went up again, then they said left, then they said up, then they said left. Over the course of time, this player, it's riding on this transparency, and they essentially are trying to figure out where this player might be, because you can't never go through an island and you can't go back on yourself. So they're trying to figure out where this player started and where they might be. That's a possibility, but so was the original possibility of somewhere like this. So they're trying to figure it out over time. But let's say it actually looked like this and the captain had moved like this. They're drawing directly right on here because it is dry erase, and it does come with an eraser right there. But every time you move as a captain, you make a little tick on this energy. And as this gets full, you can spend on your turn, instead of moving, you can use one of these to spend that much energy. For example, you could spend 2 sonar, you would erase these. Anytime you spend energy, you erase them here. You could spend sonar, and that would force the other player, the other team, to tell you either what column they're in or what row they're in. That's real good for the radio operator. If you do silence, you spend 3 energy, and you can move one direction in any direction that's legal without telling them. You can never go back on yourself, so I couldn't have gone east there. And if you have 4 energy, you can spend it to launch a torpedo. You must launch it in one of the 4 grids that you're in, so I could only launch a torpedo here, but maybe they thought they were here. I'd say launch torpedo at I-8, and I either miss or hit. If I hit, they would get a damage. If I missed, well, they at least know that I am in this grid area. And again, every time you move, you get one of these. So that's pretty much how the game works. But let's say it got a little later and I didn't want to go right, and I was kind of stuck here. What you can do is, instead of moving or doing any of these other things, you can surface. Essentially, that allows you to erase everywhere you've been, and you tell them where you're surfacing at. So you could say, okay, I am surfacing at I-4, and you make a little new X, and now this allows you to kind of go back onto spots that you haven't been yet, but they know where you are now. And this simply continues until any one team takes 2 damage. They have lost. Now there are 4 maps, as I mentioned. This tells you the names of them, and they don't do anything special. They're just different layouts to change what you might do. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, this is a smaller brother to the big brother of Captain Sonar, so I am going to be comparing and contrasting them throughout this review. This is a much more streamlined version than the original. I mean, granted, not only is the player count, but literally the actions are all much more simplified. There's only 2 roles. You can even play both roles by yourself, go back and forth, just take a little bit more time thinking things through, and it works great. So I love the way that they have streamlined this game down. Now the game itself now is much more of a pretty core, pure, hidden movement game. Where the other one had a lot of other things going on where, again, it was hidden movement and you were trying to find the other person and torpedo them, but there was a lot of other things that played around what you could and couldn't do, where you'd want to move, things like that. So this is just really much more pure hidden movement. So if you like the hidden movement aspect of the original, you're going to probably like this one a lot. It works great with both 2 or 4 players. With 2 players, again, I played it fine with playing both roles. You got to think a little bit on where you're moving and where you're when you're silencing and which ones make sense, but it's easy. 4 players is great as well. 3, it's not quite as balanced because you got to think of 2 things versus the other players just thinking 1. So I really like it best with 2 or 4 players. And this version is very easy to teach, super streamlined. You're not going to come up with the nightmare that you kind of have sometimes the first time teaching Captain Sonar, which can be a little heavy for people. This one's super streamlined. So this one's definitely going to come out more often because less players, easier to get, much more streamlined. It could be basically, I could probably teach my family this game because it's so simple. So what about, are there any cons to this? Yes, there are. There's no perfect game. So first of all, I'm sure the publishers already know this, but I know the first question I'm going to get asked, and I've already seen being placed on Board Game Geek is, hey, if you have the original Captain Sonar, can you just use this rule set and play with the Captain Sonar? There's nothing really stopping you from doing so. And I think the publisher is pretty much aware of this because I feel like they're going, you know what, Captain Sonar is great in the hobby market. Let's stream this thing out. Let's put it into a mass market store. Let's go after a different market. So I think they know that people probably can and will do this. And sure, it bothers them, but I think they're looking at a different market and it still makes sense for them to make it the way they did. Now, of course, if the other Captain Sonar didn't have the turn-by-turn maps, it would have been a lot harder, but they did that. So yes, you probably can if you want to. I would recommend buying the game, but nothing's going to stop you from adapting those rules to here and just keeping track of your energy. I kind of missed, I know they're trying to streamline this out, but I really wish they had added optional scenario-based actions because the game is super simple and I love it this way. It's very streamlined, but I really wish they would have had that sort of advanced game variant where you could have the 4 different maps. Literally, the only thing that's different is where the islands are. I really wish there would have been different scenario-based actions that you could have taken as well to spice those up just a little bit. I really wish they had developed that a little bit further for an advanced variant of this simple game, and it would have been sort of in between this and the big Captain Sonar. It would have been a perfect thing to do. I think they missed a big opportunity to do that here. And my biggest problem with the game is, in my experience, once the first team gets hit, it's very hard for them to recover and win the game. It's almost like the game should just be one hit and you're done. Because once you get hit, they know exactly where you are. You can try to move, but you're probably going to want to surface so you can have more freedom and then try to silence out. But we found it really hard for that first player that gets hit to win the game. And I really wish they would have done something differently where, if you get hit, the first time that you get hit, you automatically surface. You can erase your line and maybe even giving yourself a free silence on your first move or something to get you out of there. Otherwise, they know where they are and it makes it even harder. They can always stay one step ahead of you because, I just felt it not broken, but definitely to the point where I feel like there's gonna need to be either an official designer variant or I'm gonna have to house rule something. I felt it was that unbalanced where once you get a hit, it was really hard for that play to win. So that's it. The cons, there are some cons. But the pros are, wow, this thing's going to come out more often. And I really liked how they streamlined this out. It's going to come out more often, and I'll probably try to figure out some house rules for the first player getting hit to even it up, to give that player a chance to win the game again, and that's Sonar.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.